Rini Roy, Assistant Professor, Department of Microbiology, Vidhanagar College, and life member of Professor Ghosh Foundation. Today, we are going to observe the World Health Day 2024. Welcome all the teachers and students for the celebration of this day. Now, I invite, I've already seen that Director of Birla Industrial and Technological Museum, and our speaker, Professor Dr. Sujoy Ghosh, Department of Endocrinology, IPGMER, SSKM, Kolkata, are already in the dais, and now I am inviting Dr. Shumantro Das, Treasurer and retired scientist, Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, and life member of Professor Ghosh Foundation, and Dr. Romi Krishna Dey. Also, I am asking, he is the advisor and former executive secretary, Indian National Science Congress Association, and honorary secretary, Indian Science News Association, and life member of Professor Ghosh Foundation, to come to the dais. Thank you, sir, for coming to the dais. Now I invite Dr. Aditinath Choudhury, retired HOD, head of the Department of Microbiology, Lady Brabon College, and secretary, Professor Ghosh Foundation, for her welcome address to the audience. Dr. Choudhury.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the World Health Day celebration at Birla Industrial and Technological Museum in association with Professor Ghosh Foundation. The theme, this year's theme is My Health, My Right, and our honorable speaker, Dr. Professor Sujoy Ghosh, will speak on towards a healthier future. Now, I am here instead of Professor M.K. Poddar, our president, because he is not well and has got an appointment with hospital today, this morning. So I am here, and I am sure that you will enjoy the valuable speech given by our speaker, honorable speaker, and you know our speaker is too busy with his own profession as well as with his research work, which is very important to us that doctors are doing research work. We always welcome this feature. Okay, now who is Professor Ghosh? Ghosh was born in 1925 on 19th of July in a village. Then after completing his BTech in biochemistry and PhD degree under Dr. Biresh Chandra Guho, he went abroad from Canada, and then first in Canada and then to US. He came back and joined as the first professor selected by the university for newly independent biochemistry department in the year 1956. And from this time, he was educating us till 2011 before his demise. And under his guidance, 80 students did their PhD degrees, and a huge number of publications are there. So you can imagine how busy he was. But we are remembering Professor Ghosh as a teacher who will create a drama in everyday classroom years after years. That was amazing classes we have attended. And after retirement, it was very easy to touch him or contact him at the library of IICB. And after a minute's discussion, we, the students and other scientists, will get a new angle on a particular topic they are discussing. This is Professor Ghosh. After his demise in the year 2011, we have started this foundation, we have established this foundation to memorize him. We do a number of programs every year. This is the first program of a year, that is the 7th April celebration. 7th April was a Sunday, so we are celebrating the World Health Day today for school students. And on 19th July, on his birthday, we organize memorial lecture by any eminent scientist or teacher for undergraduate students. During Puja vacation, we organize open book critical essay writing competition for postgraduate students. And sometimes during winter, we can organize winter session of Dept Ghosh Memorial Lecture that is done by usually the students who are abroad and come to homeland during winter. We invite them and the students so we can organize a particular type of interacting session. And the fifth one is we congratulate the students who got highest marks in neurobiochemistry in MSc in biochemistry, Kolkata University. Neurobioscience was the first love of our sir. He also did research work on microbiology and nutritional sciences, but neuroscience always with him. So this is about Professor Dept Ghosh and Professor Dept Ghosh Foundation. Again, I am welcoming you to the program, which you will enjoy a lot and cannot forget in any time in your whole life. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your encouraging words. Now I shall invite Director, Birla Industrial and Technological Museum to deliver his welcome address. Sir, please.
Thank you, madam. Very good morning. To the dignitaries on the dais and the dignitaries in the front, my dear students, accompanying teachers, guardians if there be any, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the first science center of the country under the aegis of the Government of India, Birla Industrial and Technological Museum, I welcome you all to this commemorative program which is being organized on a collaborative platform with Professor J.J. Ghosh Foundation, and it is basically to commemorate World Health Day. In fact, today we'll be commemorate this one with two programs. The first one will be a popular lecture towards a healthier future by Professor Sujoy Ghosh. He has already been he has been to some extent introduced by my predecessor and also will be formally introduced by Professor Day later on. And then it will be followed by an open house quiz on My Health, My Right. That is the theme of this year's World Health Day. In fact, these sessions will be available to over more than 270 registered students from different schools in Calcutta and the suburb. In fact, I congratulate each of them for braving this, very difficult weather we have been facing nowadays to come over here. They are mostly from Novojatak Vidya Bhavan for girls, Behala Girls High School, Higher Secondary Section, Birla High School, Mukundapur, Children's Welfare Association High School for Girls, Higher Secondary Section, Vidya Bharati Girls High School, Modern Land Girls High School, Beltala Girls High School, Agroshen Balika Vidyalaya, KV Baliganj, Techno India Group Academia, South Calcutta, Techno India Public School Konnagar, and Delhi Public School Ruby Park. They will see these programs live over here. This program is also available in our YouTube channel. So those who are online, I also welcome them to this program. In fact, it is a great opportunity for us to provide this platform to the young minds, because we have been doing this one since 1959 to different, structures. So I hope that you'll really enjoy it, and we strongly believe that the students are the torch bearers of tomorrow. And right now, India is going through a very vantage position, in a very advantageous position, because demographically we are very in an advantageous position. Most of the population will have within the working age group between 18 to 54, and this scenario, this demographic scenario will last up to 2054. So keeping that one in view, BI team has been organizing such programs, and it is really wonderful opportunity to see those who are working from behind for the cause of science, like Professor Ghosh, to interact with them. In fact, as students also we used to come and enjoy. So nobody knows that who else from you will come over here, also sit in the dais and address the next generation of students. With that, I wish you all the best for this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring speech. Now, I shall call upon Dr. Amit Krishna Dey, Advisor and former Executive Secretary, Indian National Science Congress Association, Honorary Secretary, Indian Science News Association, Guest Lecturer, Department of Applied Nutrition and Dietetics, Sister Nivedita University, and also the life member of Prof. Dept Foundation, to introduce our today's speaker, Professor Dr. Sujoy Ghosh. Dr.
Thank you, Rini. Honorable members of the dais, and also here to the stage, and all my brothers and sisters, I would say. It's very nice to see all of you, fresh faces and names here. And now I have a great privilege to introduce Dr. Sujoy Ghosh, who is our main speaker today. And because health is a very important issue now, and it is really a concern for all of us. And from this age only, you have to be very attentive towards your health, please. Now, Dr. Sujoy Ghosh, who is the MBBS MD DM, Endocrinology and MRCP from UK, and FRCP from, he is there in London, Glasgow, Edinburgh, with a specialty certificate of endocrinology and diabetes in UK. So, as you can see from the board itself, he is attached with the Institute of Postgraduate Medical Education and Research in SSKM Hospital, Kolkata. But his achievement, I mean, we cannot finish within a few minutes. It's a very big list. And he has contributed a lot in the not only area of medical sciences in respect of research, but also he has plenty of publications, more than 300. So many books are there where he is a co-author and editor of the books. And these books which have been circulated all over the world, and he has won several awards at undergraduate and postgraduate and doctorate level for his academic excellence. And he is a rank holder in all university examinations, stood first in postgraduate and postdoctoral examinations, and he was awarded with university scholarship for academic excellence. and he has received several gold medals during his student career. And some of the books you can see in the net also, like Endoscopy, Fundoscopy Made Easy, Churchill's Pocket Book of Diabetes, Yearbook of Diabetes. So these are very popular books which is there, and publications definitely I said more than 300. Awards, many awards are there. I mean, starting from in different conferences, he had got Best Poster Awards, first prize award for the best posters, and then he stood first in India in the neurology session for presentation of scientific paper of India in Jaipur. Then won Dove Innovation Award 2018 in Metabolomics, and he is an expert also in different committees, and he was selected for AAC Outstanding International Clinical Award 2021, which is one of the most coveted honors in the medical world. And so many different medals and awards in his list. And his specialty, he's in the Department of Endocrinology, so he started the pediatric diabetics clinic, specialized thyroid clinic, pregnancy diabetes clinic, diabetes kidney disease clinic, and specialized diabetes food clinic. So these are some of his achievements, only some of, because there is a huge list, and some international awards which includes American Association of Clinical Endocrinology, International Clinician of the Year 2021, and WIDF Award for Innovation in Diabetes 2021. So these are two, and he is a member of the advisory board of the International Endocrinology section, Davidson's test for internal medicine. There he is there. So I don't know how to summarize this, but you can understand what today you are going to learn from him and not from him. It's a great privilege to have him here today, and we thank him for giving some time here. So, Dr. Ghosh, please.
I want to thank you, Dr. Dev, for the nice introduction. Now I shall invite Director Birla, Industrial and Technological Museum, to felicitate our speaker, Professor Dr. Sujoy Ghosh. Sir. Thank you, sir. Before the lecture, here is an announcement that there is online streaming in another hall, as you have already been informed. Before the lecture, I want to say that there will be 5 questions. We are inviting 5 questions from the audience, from this auditorium, and also from the hall where live streaming is going on. So, among these 10 questions, one best question will be selected or judged by our speaker, and that particular student will be awarded. Okay? So, after the lecture, I just want to request that those 5 students who want to ask question to our speaker, they should come to the main auditorium so that they can directly interact with the speaker. Okay, this is all. Now, so now I shall invite our invited speaker, Professor Dr. Sujoy Ghosh, for his lecture. Sir, please.
সাইডেরটাকে দেখে নাও, ঠিক আছে? আলোটা একটু কমাতে হবে। এই যে হ্যাঁ, এই হ্যালোজেনটা কমাতে হবে, হ্যালোজেন। বড় লাইট। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, এই যে একটা অন্য যে কোনো একটা সাইডের অন্য।
Good morning. Thank you. Suprabhat. At the very outset, I would like to thank the organizers for having given me this wonderful opportunity to interact with all of you. And honestly speaking, my own intro overwhelmed me. I'm nothing like that. I'm a simple, ordinary lad who grew up in Kolkata, went to St. James's School, then to NRS Medical College, and then PG Hospital, or what is popularly called IPGNER. And then I moved to the United Kingdom, and I was fortunate to be a faculty at the University of Glasgow for about 4 years, and then I came back to India, predominantly because my mother and my mother-in-law, they were both alone, to look after them and also to give back to the city and the country where I have actually grown up. And I was a student like some of you here. When I was a student, I had the fortune of visiting some of the popular talks and lectures like this, including the JBNSTS lecture, which now I deliver that lecture sometimes when Moitri invites me. So it's actually an opportunity for me to again recap, relearn, and give back to you something, so that maybe someday some of you will get inspired to do some of the things that I'm doing here. When I was first approached for this talk, I think I was clearly warned that you might be a scientist, but we are essentially talking to children. So let's not try and talk about science in terms of a scientist, but in terms of what you as children will be able to understand, and wherein I hope you will have some difference in mindset in terms of the way you deal with your own health. More importantly, what you do when you go back home and you change the mindset of your parents. Because on television you might see there are advertisements saying that smoking is bad, but I have seen as a doctor, when children go and tell their parents, "Baba eta corona," it has a far greater impact than me as a clinician telling the patient that this is right and this is wrong. So you have a role, number one, to understand what is right for yourself. Number two, a responsibility to tell people around you what is right and what is wrong. And more importantly, try and change mindsets, because I think our current education system only tells you to mug up facts. So stop being a dump machine for facts, try to be analytical, don't get baffled or bluffed by people and advertisements, because you will see on television there are so many advertisements about health, right? What drink to drink, what Babaji will tell you to take which medicine. So you have to be scientifically correct. Do not accept anything on face value. Read for yourself before you accept something as gospel truth. So yesterday actually was the World Health Day, 7th of April, and this is this year's logo and theme of the World Health Day. So it says, "My health, my right." Everybody is quite aware of rights of life. whether you look at politicians trying to tell you what is your right, and what is your right in school, what is your right in education, and things like that. I have nothing personal about rights, but I believe rights should go hand in hand with duties. So I will finish up with duties rather than rights when I talk about health. So this year's healthcare World Health Day theme is essentially on healthcare access. And what do I mean by that? You know, every individual on earth should have their access to proper healthcare. For example, a child with type 1 diabetes should have access to insulin, should have access to a glucometer, should have access to the insulin strips, which unfortunately we are unable to provide. Whenever we talk about India being the 5th largest GDP. Nobody talks about the income per capita. There we are hopelessly 119 in the world. We don't talk about that. So where do we stand? That's what I wanted to say. Everybody talked about COVID. COVID was a terrible situation that we all faced as individuals and of course as healthcare professionals. And I had hoped that COVID would change us the way we look at health as a whole. Unfortunately, COVID was tackled politically and not by public health experts. Nobody realized that health is important until we had COVID. We all realized how important health was once COVID came on. But this is what India's picture still is. That 1.5% is actually an over-exaggeration because it takes into indirect expenses in health. Any civilized country on earth spends at least 10% of its GDP on health. When you have elections, you have people talking about religion, you have people talking about Lokhi Bhandar, but nobody talks about health and education as the primary issues that people should be fighting for. We are not doing that. In terms of level of education, we are 121 in the world. So you don't have money, and you don't even know what is good health. So how can you expect good health outcomes? And every country has a different way of looking at health. For example, if you look at United Kingdom, you have the National Health Services or NHS, which takes care of everything in terms of health. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, nobody goes for a mediclaim, nobody goes for private health care. In India, you have a total khichdi. You have Shastra Shati, you have Ayushman Bharat, you have your own mediclaim, you have, if you're lucky enough to work in a good corporate which provides you for the expense of the health, or like most people, you have to pay out of pocket. So this is the jumbled up situation of health in India right now. And when you're talking about priorities, the reason I brought this up again is I still remember when I came back and I joined the health services, I went and met the then health secretary, and I told him, I want to do something in terms of non-communicable disease in West Bengal. He said, "Dekhun, shishu mrityu hole khobor hoy. Diabetes e mrityu hole, heart attack e mrityu hole khobor hoy na. We accept that dying of heart attack is something which is normal. We accept that dying of a stroke is normal, and you are supposed to die because of that. But did you know that out of every 3 people dying in West Bengal or India, 2 people die of non-communicable disease? We are all talking about COVID. Even during COVID, non-communicable disease killed twice as that of communicable diseases. Until independence or even up till say 1960s, the commonest causes of death in India were communicable disease. Cholera, malaria, dengue, some of them have made a comeback. Tuberculosis. But now, 2/3 of all deaths will happen very silently. Mejo kakar heart attack mein mara geche. That will be a very plain, simple statement without the grumbling about 2 kids died of pneumonia or malaria, which would come up on the news. People will talk about it. People will curse at the government because of it. People will talk about dengue killing so many people. True, that is bad. But we are forgetting what the major priority of health in India should be. And these non-communicable disease, predominant driver is obesity. Predominant driver is obesity. I still remember when I was in school, we had 2 boys who were fat. And that was a time when body shaming was not that big a sin. It is now. And in that situation, we used to call them mota. Now in my daughter's class, nobody calls anybody mota because everybody is mota. That is the problem. And every family has one child or two child. The parents are working. The grandparents are looking after the kid in a big circumstances. And and everybody is over putting in as much of money and resources in buying chips, crackers, sweets, and even when the mother comes back home, out of sheer guilt, she buys something back for the child to console the child. I was not there the whole day, so this is your box of chocolates. And every child in Bengal, almost 80% of kids in the bigger schools are overweight. That is where the problem has already started. And with the pandemic of obesity, you have hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and additionally 2 other major non-communicable diseases, respiratory diseases because of pollution predominantly, and the other is cancer. The longer you live, the likelihood of cancer is going to go on increasing. So if you look at, if the Western world did not have this outbreak of non-communicable disease, yes they did, because their affluence predominantly came at a time when infectious disease was still in full swing. So if you go to museums in Europe, you will find autopsy findings where you have extensive coronary artery disease in that individual who had died, but that individual had already died of tuberculosis. We unfortunately have this so-called affluence much later when the infectious diseases are much better controlled. So we are all in this hall, 90% of us are going to die of non-communicable diseases. And what we need to understand is, change in mindset. Even when I ask some of the younger generation, they think going to McDonald's and KFC is fashionable. In the sense, janis to KFC te khela, Domino's te khela. On the other hand, if you tell them of some place where you have vegetarian or plain Bengali food, it's not that hip. Trust me, in the Western world, it's the poor who go to McDonald's and KFC because they cannot afford a good, healthy food in a good restaurant. So in the Western world, those who are at the lower socioeconomic strata, who cannot afford healthy food, are fat. And in India, the affluent are fat. Because it still hasn't struck them that being fat is a problem. So unless and until we realize that healthy eating and healthy weight is a good sign, because I see patients, their parents coming to me with these overweight kids and telling me, "Oh, job theke ekটু healthy hote arambho korlo na," which means essentially mota hote arambho korlo, which I can't tell them on their face is not healthy but unhealthy. We need to change this mindset. And this concept that the parents are to kha baba, eat as much as you need. We don't need to overfeed our children. It is on a mobile phone charge there. The charge hoye ache 98%, you still plug it in. So stop doing that, stop overfeeding. And honestly speaking, if we really want to treat only non-communicable disease, you will need 10% of the GDP. Does any political party have that political will? I think unless and until we as commoners voice our opinion and tell them to change, nothing will ever change. So I'm just going to give you, forgive me, this is epidemiological research that we did in West Bengal. I just wanted to show you data from our state, is what is the situation in Bengal. Now, the director sir quite rightly mentioned that we are a young nation, in the sense that 40% of Indians are below 25 years of age. There is a great advantage of that, and there is a huge disadvantage of that. This particular study, we looked at only people who had voter cards. That means they would have been 18 and above. And we looked at every district, every village of Bengal, did what is called the quiche method, and took samples. And if you look at urban Bengal, 19% of Bengal already has diabetes, 19% of adult population. So if you look at West Bengal, has a population of around 10 to 11 crores approximately. And I'm talking about, if you're looking at adults, that would be about 6.5 crore people. And if you're talking about 1/5 of that having diabetes, can you imagine what's the problem in Bengal? Just to treat that, the entire health budget of the state will go. If we are seriously wanting to treat, there is an adult NCD program that the central government runs. It's more of an eye wash. থাকতে হয় বলে রাখা আছে. If seriously we want to treat everybody, we are already in a mess. Now, I'm not even talking about people who are below 18s, because I told you obesity is the main driver of metabolic disease. Now, that generation, which was 10 years ahead, was relatively less fat than the current generation. Now, that fat generation is going to become adults. And this is going to go on increasing in terms of the proportion of people with diabetes. So overall 13%. Pre-diabetes, that means they are not normal, they are not diabetes, they're in between, on the boundary line, waiting to become diabetes. That's close to 23%. It's as big as a problem in terms of diabetes. And what you can see is, look at the age. At around 25, there's a sudden rise in the rate of people having diabetes. I still remember my grandfather used to say, "Janis to, umuker diabetes ache." So I did not as a child know what diabetes was. He said, "Boyesh kale ei modhumeho rog hoy." That concept is out of the window. Even when I was a student, most of the patients that I used to see who had diabetes were 55 and above. Right now in India, 70% of people who develop diabetes develop before the age of 40. And one of the major determinants of complication is duration of disease. So if you had diabetes like Jyoti Babu in the last few months of life, in your lifetime you will probably not develop any complications related to diabetes. But if you develop it earlier, you are in for a mess. In case of girls, there is one advantage. Most of them, once they become pregnant, they have a glucose test. The boys don't have that advantage. So in case of the boys that we see mostly are people who are IT personnels. They are working in an IT segment, they have an annual checkup, and then to their shock, they find that their blood sugar is 300. So the reason why I stated this is that all of you sitting here, go back home and get all of your relatives above the age of 25 a test for diabetes. And I'll tell you why. I'll come back to that later. In terms of hypertension, this is again even more neglected. Even if your parents have gone to the doctor for some reason, jor hoyeche, pet kharap hoyeche, the doctor checks the blood pressure and it's 150/92. You know, we have this tendency of saying, "Eibar beshi esche, we'll see it again next time." On the other hand, a printed report has a much more impactful result on you. Something of a blood sugar of 250 is not just Eibar esche. Whereas the blood pressure check that the doctor does, you say, "I'm stressed, I'm distressed at work, I've come from a far way, come running to you, I've just had a cigarette." So you give multiple excuses for that particular reading. But remember, close to 50% of West Bengal has high blood pressure. And age-wise, if you look, it goes on increasing as you age. Cholesterol. Now, the reason why I showed this is because I'm trying to highlight to you what are the multiple risk factors for which complications develop, right? Obesity, hypertension, diabetes, dyslipidemia, smoking. These are all risk factors for developing complications. Of them, the one which is easiest to treat is cholesterol. Because unlike diabetes, where you start with one drug today, you will have to increase the dose tomorrow. You will have to add another drug 6 months later, and still you will not get results. With the cholesterol, you add the drug, you keep taking the drug, the results will be identical. It is predictable, sustainable, durable results. But the patients, this is the first drug that they stop. Cholesterol tablet khete hobe. So there is not this understanding, and of the modifiable risks, the benefit that comes most comes from the cholesterol drug. We don't even talk about it. Physical activity. Now I don't know the schools that you are in. How many of you have physical activity classes every week, at least 2 or 3? 2 or 3 classes every week of intensive physical activity. I am surprised. And how many of you are actually into physical activity after school? So that's good. But do you know what the problem is? Once you are in class 11 and 12, you start studying for your plus 2 exams and your competitive exams, you will see all of you will put on 4 kilograms of weight. This will be more important in case of the girls who will then develop irregular cycles and polycystic ovarian disease. Even if you are exercising during your school 11 and 12 days, after you go to college, you don't exercise. After you join work, exercise is something unheard of. So exercise is not part of life. Exercise has to be part of life. I'll talk about exercise in a minute. So you can see, not surprisingly, in particularly urban areas, 3/4 of people don't exercise. They're inactive. Now why have I called these NCDs silent killer? Because you don't have any symptoms. So for example, you have malaria, you have shivering, you have fever, you go to the doctor, it's your priority. Your cholesterol is high. Are you having any symptom? No. Your blood pressure is high. Are you having any symptoms? You have diabetes. Do you think most people with diabetes have symptoms? 60% will never have any symptoms. So it's not your priority. It is like you have to go on your own, motivate yourself at regular intervals and get yourself checked. If you don't get yourself checked, you will never know you had. And then you will say, like my Major Kaka, had a sudden heart attack. There is nothing sudden about a heart attack. It has taken years of preparation. Something has gone wrong beneath. So I call it the rule of 50%. So I talked about managing these problems, right? To manage problems, you first need to know that you have problems. Just like politicians, you keep a blind eye and say, "Kono samasya nahi." You can't do that. So 50% of people with diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia don't even know that they have a problem. So that 50% is not getting treated. The ones that are diagnosed, 50% of them get treatment. And the ones that get treatment, 50% of them adhere to treatment. And the ones who adhere to treatment, only 50% of them achieve targets. So that is the pathetic state of affairs of management of health-related problems. Self-motivation, self-discipline are things that we are not taught. I think that's much more important than teaching a lot of the subjects that we are taught at school. So I was trying to tell you that 70% of people with diabetes have diabetes before the age of 40. 10% of people who have a heart attack have it before the age of 40. এই যে সবাই আমরা দেখলাম হঠাৎ করে সৌরভ গাঙ্গুলির চেস্ট পেন হলো, someone who is so physically fit, he has a terrible family history and which he didn't bother about. So you got to understand যে আমরা ওই একটু হোক না বয়স, এখন তো সবে কম বয়স পরে ভাববো, that concept is out and no age is safe. So the government of India talks about screening for non-communicable disease after age of 30. I would say that needs to be brought down to age 20 and even lower if you have a strong family history and if you're overweight. So why are we concerned? So you're not worried about the expenses, but because it will lead to complication in spite of what you do. As scientists, we talk about studies and clinical trials where a particular drug is useful, right? What does a drug do? It reduces the absolute risk and the relative risk of an event happening. But is that absolute risk reduced to zero? Of course not. So for example, somebody has diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, XYZ, has a chance of having a heart attack in 10 years. If you give this drug, that chance of A comes down by say 50%. But it's still there. Limitations of treatment. Of course, there is limitation of treatment and tremendous cost, and lifespan is reduced by these particularly dangerous diseases. So what should we be doing? So the first thing that I talked about was proper screening. So if after having gone back home, all of you are able to convince people at home that you need to screen yourself initially at least once, and then depending on your risk factors, either every year every 3 years or every 5 years. And it's always great to tag it with your birthday. I do it that way. The week before my birthday, I go and do all my tests. So I remember whether I've actually done it or not. Because often, you don't even realize that 2 years have passed. And the next time you are giving a gift to your parents or somebody else, rather than a shari or a box of chocolates or a earring, fund the tests. That's a much better gift. In terms of dietary modification, weight management, exercise, smoking and all of these, I'll talk bit by bit in as simplistic a manner as possible. So everybody talks about a balanced diet, right? But it remains very, very theoretical. So some of you who have put on weight will say, I've gone for a crash diet. Remember, we eat because of two reasons. I think everybody does that for two reasons. One, you want your stomach to be filled, right? And second is the taste of the food. You want to enjoy that. That is pleasurable. The first thing, that is filling the volume of the stomach, is non-compromisable. Because you try to cut down on the volume of food that you're eating, whatever your dietitian tells you, you will never ever be able to sustain that. So, you understand you need to cut down on what? The ones which are low volume but high calories. So get that out. The ones which are high volume, low calorie, keep that in so that your stomach is filled. The one thing that I will tell every mom in this room and every child in this room to go back home and find out is, Shara mashe tel kinche koto. So the amount of oil that your parents are buying at home is the most important issue. Because 1 teaspoon of oil is 45 kilocalories. And 1 teaspoon of oil is so little, right? Whereas if you have 100 grams of boiled potatoes, it is 100 kilocalories. So 100 grams of potato is like this, and 1 teaspoon of oil is this. Make sure that the monthly oil consumption in every family is less than half a liter per person per month. So if it's a family of 4, no more than 2 liters of oil, ghee, butter, all together. And this includes the food that your father has in his office. This includes the food that you buy on Zomato or Swiggy. So that is your total oil consumption per month. Most of the parents aren't cooking nowadays because they are out for work. There's a home help who actually cooks. Now the home help uses a lot of oil because of 2 reasons. Number one, otherwise people in the house will say that the food does not taste good. The bigger reason is because that person cooks in 3 houses. If you pour more oil, it's much easier to cook quickly. Taratari rannata hoye jaye. So to give an incentive to the cook, tell the cook, right now you are spending 4 liters of oil. I want you to cut it down to 2 liters. At the end of the month, if you can cook with 2 liters, I will give you 2 liters of bonus oil. Let that be the incentive for that person. Secondly, change the way you are cooking. For example, you want fried potatoes, fine. Boil the potato first and then fry it. You will need less of oil. And the third thing, which is something that my mother is dead against me telling her, is use the non-stick. Kajal log use korle naki scratch pode jaye. So let that be replaced, but don't replace your health. So change the way you're cooking, change what you're eating, and cut down on the oil. That is the most important lesson. And forget about what the media tells you about which oil to buy. Whether it is white oil, whether it is grey oil, whether it is green oil or black oil, oil is oil. The quantity is much more important than the quality. You will see advertisements on television telling you this oil is 0 cholesterol, right? All vegetable oils are 0 cholesterol because plant source mein cholesterol rehta hi nahi hai. So all that bluffing that goes on, please forget about it. Traditional oil is good enough. You don't have to go and buy canola oil and olive oil. Eat what you have been eating over centuries, what you have enjoyed. I see Bengalis now having breakfast as oats. When I ask them, do you enjoy it? No. My dietitian has told me. So something that you don't enjoy, something that is not part of your life, it is like a punishment rather than enjoyment. You will not be able to sustain it. So modify whatever you are eating. You will see now there's a lot of focus on these millets and cereals. Don't get into that bluff. Cereal is cereal. 50 grams of any cereal has same amount of carbohydrate. Don't go for polished rice and things like that because that has less fibers. Otherwise, there is nothing wrong whether you are taking wheat, whether you are taking suji, whether you are taking rice. Cereal is cereal. So that is something that I would encourage all of you to go for. I'll skip all of this. Right. One of the things that I thought I should tell you is a simple rule. People go to dietitians, right, to get a diet chart, which looks like an army barracks regime, which tells you, in breakfast you take 2 cream cracker biscuits. I don't know where that cream cracker biscuit came from. Why not a Marie biscuit or something like that? And a cup of tea with sugar-free added to it. So don't do all of that. Take sugar but half a spoon. Anything in moderation in life is good. And remember the concept of meal exchanges. So if your meal contains about 50 grams of cereal, you go to the bazaar and weigh 50 grams of rice. You boil it, you know what the quantity is. So that 50 grams of cereal is replaceable. Today it can be rice, tomorrow it can be dalia, next day it can be chapati. So keep on changing because you don't want to be in an army barrack. You get an idea. If you don't have any idea, buy a stainless steel plate, a 10-inch plate, and it divided into half. That one half is your cereals and your green leafy vegetables. 1/4 is your starchy vegetables. And the next quarter is your protein. That can be your fish, that can be your chicken, that can be dal with soybean or whatever it is. That's a simple way of looking at this is my quantity of food that I will take. The entire day, no more than 1 pinch of salt in the cooking. And I have already told you about the oil content. In between, if you can, the snacks that you are taking, it could be fruits, it could be some other form of carbohydrate, as much as it fits in the fist of your hand. তাহলে আপেলটা যতটা বড়, পেয়ারাটা যতটা বড়, যতগুলো আঙ্গুর হাতে ধরতে পারছি, so that is your in between snacks. So 3 meals and 2 snacks, you cut it out like that. And what I am trying to tell you is not for somebody who has got diabetes. This is for everybody. This is healthy eating for everybody. And a lot of people come back and tell me, "Amar rannata na alada hocche. Patient diabetes ache bole." What discrimination even at home? Just imagine. And as if everybody else in the house is doing that person a favor, or that person is doing a favor by having his food kept separately. People will say, "I'm not having this namak." You will see Kirti Salon giving ad of Puro, right? Absolute rubbish. We don't have legislation in our country. Otherwise, we would have said there's no point in buying that salt with 10 times the money. So, stick to the basics. Coming to exercise. Very difficult. Because exercise is not part of our lives. Particularly the seniors sitting here, I can vouch that at least 70% of them don't exercise. And the ones who do, they do it as a trigger. হঠাৎ করে মনে হয়েছে New Year resolution or something like that, people will start exercising. And I have seen people buying treadmills at home. And when I tell them before buying that after a while, ওটার উপর জামা কাপড় শুকোবে, they look at me with a very, very negative faces, but that is what happens. So only do that exercise which you think you can imbibe as part of your life. If you start thinking that from tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym and then you will not be able to sustain it, there's no point in doing that. Do what you can. And not everybody needs to go to the gym. Because after a while you will see that your knees pain, you've got foot problems. So if you can learn, the best form of exercise is swimming. Because the body floats. You don't damage your joints. Though I understand swimming facilities are restricted and it is seasonal. But that would be the best form of exercise. If not, just go for a casual walk. But remember, by exercising, you cannot lose weight. Now I'm making a very bold statement. Everybody who wants to lose weight goes to the gym. I'll give you an example. All of us are sitting here for about an hour and we are on an average spending 150 kilocalories just by sitting and listening to my rubbish. If you were running for this 1 hour, or swimming for 1 hour, or cycling for 1 hour, you would have spent 400 kilocalories. I don't know how many of you would have been able to run for 1 hour, or swim for 1 hour. So by doing that, you are spending 250 calories extra, which is 5 teaspoons of oil, which is easier in this balance sheet, reducing income or increasing expenditure. So you understand that it is much easier to reduce your income rather than increase your expenditure. But still you should exercise because it helps to tone the body up better. Body functions improve. But if you are exercising with this in mind, that I am exercising to lose calories, because people will look at their smartwatches, 10,000 steps today, extra 175 calories burnt, that is fashionable, but does not help at the individual patient level. Right. So long I've been all talking about fixing a leaking ceiling. We've been talking that people already have disease, and this is what you need to do in trying to make a quick fix. Now, is that the right approach? So in medicine, we have always been taught that prevention is better than cure. So I'll talk to you about a particular model for school children in Singapore. Now in Singapore, all the schools are funded by the government. There's no concept of a private school. So who pays for the school? The government. And how does the school decide whom to pay? I'll come to that later. So there is this concept of Singapore School Fruit Program. So in schools, unlike some of you who've got tiffin boxes with you today, you're not allowed to take anything from home to school to eat. In the school, you don't have a canteen where you can buy samosas, chips, crisps, fizzy drinks. You're allowed to take only fruits and water, which is provided by the school. So it's called the Singapore School Fruit Program. So your break time is only fruits and only water. So the school does this along with at least 3 physical activity periods in a day. Why does the school do it? Are they very well motivated? They want all their kids to do well? No. It all boils down to money. The school gets funding on the basis of the health of the kids. If the school has fat kids, the school will get less money. It is as plain and simple as that. So if your school was to get less money because you were overweight, your teachers will actually ensure that you are not overweight, number one. And in school, there is classes on health progression, health development, and healthier living. Now imagine a child, once that child knows what is right and what is wrong in terms of the health, what is his or her likelihood of being a healthy citizen? Much higher. And that child is likely to go back to his home and tell his parents, what you are doing is wrong, what you are doing is wrong. This is what I want, this is my diet, this is my exercise, and you better change things as well. So through the child, you are making a change to society. Very difficult to do in India. Will not be possible perhaps. So I thought of picking this up because my grandmother used to talk to me about konar bottle. So I don't know how many of you have heard. One of the phrases that she stated was, "Kom khele beshi khai, beshi khele kom khai," which essentially tells us that the amount of food that you're going to eat all your life is fixed. So if you eat less, you will eat for a longer period of time. If you start gobbling down too much today, you will eat for a smaller period of time. So it's up to you to decide how long you want to eat. So it's very difficult to change habits because it's already ingrained in you. And one of my teachers told me, do you know why it's very difficult to change habits? This is the word, right? You try a lot, you try hard and get rid of the letter H. A bit is still left. You try harder and get rid of the letter A. The bit is still there. You try even harder, it is still there. But it is possible to get rid of habits. So you've got to decide upon, these are my priorities of life, and this is what I'm going to do, and be determined to follow it, only then you'll be able to do it. So it's time for change. So what are the things that we can do? Of course, you guys still probably don't have a voting right and your voice does not matter. So even if you had a voting right, I'm not very sure how much it would matter. But let us look at what other countries are doing. So there are several countries which have now put in what is called a sugar tax. So if you're selling food items which has a lot of sugary stuff in it, you'll have to pay extra tax. And that money, a lot of people who are rich will pay. At least the poorer who are taking the fizzy drinks will hopefully avoid some of them. Next comes the concept of food labeling. Now, Sri Lanka has done that. In India right now, the food labeling is for green and red, which just tells you this is veg, this is non-veg. In that food labeling in Sri Lanka, you can see it will tell you that this is the total amount. It's mandatory. You will find in some of the restaurants that you're going, you do have food labeling in some of them, that it will tell you that this is the amount of calories, and this is the amount of sugar in it, and these are the additives in it. So you know the amount of poison that you are consuming. You might tell me, on every cigarette box it says smoking kills, but still we kill ourselves, right? But at least the more conscious ones would know what to have and what not to have. Now for you all to know the amount of calorie intake that you guys should be taking, as an adult, if you are sedentary, first of all look at your height in centimeters and subtract 100 from it. So if your height is 150 centimeters, if you subtract 100, 50 is your ideal height as a male if you were American, and about 45 is your height if you were an American lady. Now in India, our body frames are slightly lower, right? So you know if your height is 150, ideal body weight as an American would be 50 kgs. You go back and you will find most of us are weighing more than that. Some of us will not weigh that much, and therefore will be very happy to say, okay, my body mass index is within range, but over a period of time they'll put on weight. That's even worse than having weight from before. So if you're looking at calorie intake, so whatever is your ideal body weight, your calorie intake, if you are sedentary, you multiply it by 25. So if your weight is say somewhere around 50 kilograms, you multiply it by 25, that would be your daily calorie intake. So you know the amount of junk that you're actually pushing in. So I've already talked about these legislations that we need to do. Salt is terrible. Try and cut down salt as much as possible. Now then we don't have any legislation on fructose and additives. You know, all of you go to say, I'm just saying this for the sake of the name, Monginis or any of these places where you buy cakes, right? Pastries. You know, you ask your mother to make one at home, it goes stale in 2 days or 3 days. Now these guys have made it 2 weeks ago. It's still there. It's still fresh. It's still soft. It's because of the amount of fructose that you've added to it. Because that does not degrade. But that's terrible for the body. So additives that we are adding to the food that we are having, which is making it increasing the shelf life of it at the cost of our health, we need to do something about it. Tobacco. Now I don't think any government is going to ban tobacco or even restrict alcohol, because that generates revenue. But I think at least the next generation, at some point of time, you guys need to raise your voice to say no to tobacco. Zero tobacco. Because I see a lot of patients coming back and telling me, oh, आगे 20 टा खेते मैं 10 टा खाई. So I say, आगे बेशी बीश खेते ना तुम कम बीश खाते. And some of them will say, oh, smoking ছেড়ে দিয়েছি and now started taking khoini. So that's no excuse. So we have to ensure that it is zero tobacco. Those of you who have parents at home who are smoking or taking tobacco in any form, go ahead and have a fight at home today. I am instigating you today. Go ahead and do it. Because if you truly love your loved ones, make sure people stop smoking. Because I'll give you an example. In this room, we have a few adults. Now, some of us are going to die in 10 years. Now, imagine those adults did not have diabetes and were not taking tobacco in any form. The 10-year mortality is X. Now, if the same group of people had diabetes, the 10-year mortality would be 2X. And the same group, if they additionally had tobacco in addition to the diabetes, the 10-year mortality would be 3X. We are spending time, energy, money, effort to try and manage metabolic diseases. That one intervention is more beneficial than all of the interventions taken together. And it's not just that I'm saying this just for the sake of saying it, just like all doctors do. Now in terms of play and exercise, I do understand there are issues. For those of you who are in school, at least you have probably a playground or some place to play. Now what about the adults? Where do they go? And particularly if you talk about facilities out of their working hours, once they come back. I don't know. I don't have a ready-made answer to that. And of course, promote sports. It's not that everybody starts jumping when somebody's won a gold medal or when Virat Kohli scores a century. In a population of 140 crore, you will always have individual geniuses. But look at a country like New Zealand. Population is less than Dom Dom Lok Sabha. It's smaller than Dom Dom Lok Sabha. Every year it makes it to the semi-finals of cricket, hockey, rugby. So how does it do that? It's the culture of sports, something which we don't have. That needs to be brought in and imbibed. Don't worship the heroes. It's once you're able to get the lowest of the lowest people to a certain level in terms of sports, that is when success is. Individual people will always do well. That is their credit. The country has got no role in it. And when I was in class 10, my counterparts in Madhyamik, they had a subject of physical education. That's gone. Because it's not important. That is what the government feels. It should be made mandatory as part of curriculum. There should be marks on it. মাধ্যমিকে যে বইটা দেখে বিজ্ঞাপন দেখে বলে আমি ফার্স্ট হয়েছি, সে যেন বলতে পারে আমি ওই সুইমিং পুলে গিয়ে সাঁতার শিখে আমি ওই সাবজেক্টে ফার্স্ট হয়েছি। That needs to be brought in rather than mugging all the time. I see some of the corporates now have gyms. Some of the colleges now have play areas, but that needs to improve. So moving on to Dr. Kalam, someone that I always have respected. This is his book, Ignited Minds. And why did I bring this up? I'll talk about that as well. This is something that all of you should always remember. Our current education system tells you only to mug up facts, not to think analytically. Because one of the aspects of my life is to be curious and to do research. I think all of you should be curious about everything. When we all talk about Newton's apple, I'm sure several other people saw the apple fall before. But why did Newton think that it was gravity? So by now you've realized that I'm an endocrinologist whose main job is to look after patients, right? That's why the government pays me. And most doctors in India, for them, being a doctor means rugi dekha, and that's it. It begins and ends with that. But I believe I have more important roles in terms of service delivery and changes in systems. As a doctor, as an individual, I will be able to look after what? X number of people. But if I'm able to change systems of health, then I think I would have made a much more bigger contribution. And of course, we all have duties towards society. And of course, several others, and I'm not going to even talk about my basic science or clinical science. And as a teacher, like I said, one of the roles is to ignite minds. So these are children that I look after with type 1 diabetes. I currently look after close to 2,000 children with diabetes. Some of them as young as 2 weeks. I look after them in my clinic in PG Hospital. So I started the first pediatric diabetes clinic in the state of West Bengal, which was inaugurated by Abdul Kalam. That's when he came. Changing diabetes in India, he came and inaugurated that clinic. But then I realized that a child is coming from Murshidabad or North Bengal just to see me every month for his management of diabetes. So we need something else in terms of a healthcare plan at a state level and preferably at a national level. So I came up with a model of integrated care for type 1 diabetes, and I wrote to the central government through the state government, and as part of a pilot, I was provided funding, and I started in 5 district hospitals in West Bengal, wherein I trained up the people in those district hospitals to deliver care. And now I've gone up to the second phase, where I'm starting in another 15 districts. So you know there are 27 health districts in West Bengal, so 20 of them will have this model. And this is when that model was launched, came out in the Times of India. This is the logo. And we published the methodology paper. And this won the Best Practices and Achievement Award from the government of West Bengal. And then Lancet invited me to write a commentary on the same, and the central government thereafter has called me to write up a national health policy so that every district hospital of India has a childhood diabetes care center. This is the guideline that I've written up based on our model. And JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation of USA, has nominated our model for the Pediatric Diabetes Innovation of the Year. The reason I talked about this is, in whatever sphere of life you're working, it does not have to be health, think of ways that you can contribute to society. Think of ways which would be simple, yet would have long-lasting effects on outcome of people and improve their lives. So you started with my health, my right. So I think from there, we have to do our duty as an individual level, as societal level, and as organizations. So I believe I would replace that with my health, my duties towards myself, my family, and society. So good health right now, I think, is still a myth. It is a possibility, and it is up to you all to make it a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We express our sincere thanks for giving this highly informative, enlightening, illustrious, and interesting speech. And you have really ignited the minds of the audience. Thank you, sir, for your speech. Now, we are inviting questions from the audience who are present in this auditorium, as well as from the audience where live streaming is going on. So, students, 5 students may ask questions to our speaker from this. Please raise your hands who want to ask questions. Yes, so you, okay, 2, please tell us your name and then your question for the speaker.
Good morning everyone. I am Dept from Kolkata. So I have heard many students speaking of biology is something related to rote learning. So how can we change this?
Sorry, question related to
rote learning. They related to rote learning. So how can we change this mindset in the students, and how can we view biology with a different perspective?
Right. I think it depends a lot the way you have been taught in school. In the sense that if you're looking at biology as something that you've got to mug up, I think we've got it extremely wrong. We've got it extremely wrong. It's much more exciting, much more interesting than that. And I would suggest some of you to start watching National Geography and Animal Kingdom to start with, to understand more of biology. And there are several online resources where you can look at evolution and biological sciences. I would first request you to start reading and watching scientific reports biology. You will then enjoy learning biology. And I think this is true for any subject. No subject is dry and drab. You need to find out what is interesting and exciting in that subject and what that subject has to offer to you. And only then you will start enjoying that subject.
Please repeat your name and school.
Ahitagni Mukherjee, Kendriya Vidyalaya, Baliganj.
Kendriya Vidyalaya, Baliganj, Ahitagni Mukherjee.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
Someone from this side, please.
Okay, we are coming.
নমস্কার, আমি পিউ বইলাম দেবতলা গার্লসের নবম শ্রেণীর ছাত্রী। স্যার, আমার কোয়েশ্চেন আপনার কাছে যে স্বাস্থ্য আমাদের মন এবং হৃদয়ের সাথে যে কিভাবে সম্পর্কিত এবং এটার প্রভাব সমাজে কতটা?
আচ্ছা, so you're talking about mental health as well as physical health. Well, the World Health Organization defines health as an absolute state of happiness and well-being of not just the physical health but also the mental health. Now, there is a lot of interplay between the two. For example, if you've gone and fractured your left foot, will you be mentally very, very happy? So there is interrelationship between the two, number one. One that I've given you an example is a direct, crude example. The other way would be, if you are unhappy, if you are depressed, you are likely to have a lot of somatic symptoms, which are not necessarily because of abnormal bodily functions. For example, আমার মন খুব খারাপ, খালি মনে হচ্ছে বুকে ব্যথা হচ্ছে, খালি মনে হচ্ছে গা গুলোচ্ছে. So there is a strong interplay, and the fact that you brought up the issue of একটা discrimination. এতে কিন্তু on the other hand, if you have say a stroke or a heart attack or diabetes, that's not looked at that much as a discriminant or a taboo. You know, mental health issues is something that our society is still not very well prepared to open up to. Even there are so many students here, and I deal with kids every day, that a lot of you are under huge amount of peer pressure. Huge amount of pressure from your parents. বাবা মা যা পায়নি, বাবা মা নম্বর যোগ করলে স্টার পাবে না, কিন্তু ছেলে মেয়েকে পেতে হবে, এই যে একটা আকাঙ্ক্ষা বাবা মাদের through their kids. So these are challenges, and we need a platform where everybody can open up and talk about what's going on inside their head and mind much more than they talk about physical health. Physical health is a much easier thing to tackle. 10টা টেস্ট করলেন, 2টো ওষুধ দিলেন, 5টা চিকিৎসা করলেন, সোজা। মনের কষ্ট বোঝা শক্ত, বোঝানো আরো শক্ত, আর আরেকজন বুঝবে এটা আরো শক্ত। Very good question.
Here is in the front.
All right, the next question, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I am Rumela Bhomik from Birla High School, Mukundapur. Regardless of how curt and beautiful your speech was, there's one thing which left dangling. How do you think self-motivation in a country like India works? Like for, say, screening us health, or for, you know, quitting tobacco for the youth and for adults?
I think that's a very good question as well. See, essentially, the first thing that you need to do when you make a change is to understand that there's a problem. So hopefully, if through my talk today, I was able to make you all understand that we have a huge problem ahead of us, and we have blinkers on our eyes, and we are not even accepting that there are problems, is the first step of trying to solve a problem. So if you guys go back home today knowing that this is the kind of risk, and it's not that, you know, only people who have X, Y, or Z will develop these diseases. Everybody is at risk. And when you talk about a 20%, 30% chance of having something, it's a pretty big risk, right? It's not like playing dice when it's going to be 6, only 1 out of 6. So knowing that that's a problem is the first thing. If I've been able to scare you off and do it, I think that's the first good step that I've taken. The second thing is about telling people to understand that they need to do something. Now then, what are the barriers or the challenges in breaking through there? Number one, there are financial barriers. Now you might be coming from a family which has 4 members. Now I'm asking you to and your family to get tests X, Y, and Z done, at least 1 in 3 to 5 years. That needs to be factored into the family budget in terms of the money, number one. Number two, time constraint. Your father is busy with his work, mom is busy with her work. Getting everybody together to agree and understand and accept that this is important is the next big challenge, which we all have to motivate ourselves to do. Who tells you to study? Sometimes your mother gives you a whack and tells you to study, or maybe somebody else is screaming at you, or you are self-motivated to study. But ultimately it needs to be done. Once you've done that, you know you have a problem or you don't have a problem. If you have a problem, we need to take a separate path. If you don't have a problem, we need to at least imbibe certain habits. The next time you take out your smartphone and click on the Zomato app, think again, Is it really necessary? I already had Halim last week. Can I wait? And give that to yourself as a treat, in the sense that, okay, I'm going to, this 2 weeks, I'm going to finish reading, writing, or whatever, studying this, and this. After that, I'm going to take a day off, where I'm going to have that treat, but it can't be a regular habit. It can't be that today you are ordering from Siraj, tomorrow you are ordering from barbecue, and the day after, because it's become so much easier, particularly after the pandemic, this has become so much easier. I did not have the courage to tell people that I would have wanted to ban these apps. Not because I'm against it, it has good things as well. I know a lot of elderly people who would not have survived without these apps. They would not have survived, because there is a lot of things that have come out of good out of the pandemic, that you now have home help or home supplies of food and stuff like that. But what it has made is, it has made all of us much more vulnerable, in the sense that, and now you have Zomato saying that if you order a day before, you can have something from Lucknow also delivered to you. So I'm not saying to do away with all the good things in life. I'm just asking you for moderation. And to make you understand is that what you are not understanding today as a 15 or a 16-year-old, that when you come to the age of 55, you still want to go abroad, you still want to go to Vaishno Devi and climb the stairs and see the goddess that you pray, but make sure that you are doing something to ensure that you have a healthy life. Because most of the time, in the beginning you are studying because you want to get into something good, then you are slogging it out so that you get a good job, and then you are slogging it out so that you can have a secure future. By the time you have that money, you don't have the health to enjoy that money. Health is wealth. So that we realize at my stage of life. I can't rewind my tape recorder and go back. I wish somebody told me to do it at that point of time.
So, thank you, sir. But then, do you think everything, like, at the end comes down to how mentally strong or how mentally fit you are?
Right. So, you need to read Vivekananda. Basically, we might all scream at the government and say, government should do this, government should do that, or somebody else should do this. My mom should ensure that the cook does this, or my dad should not buy this. Ultimately, it boils down to you. You look at the cricketers who've done well. You look at someone like Rahul Dravid, he used to meditate. See, there is so much more to life than your basic skills. The soft skills of life will ultimately ensure how good and how successful you are. The rest will be important, but ultimately between X and someone who is above there, it will be all on the soft skills of life, of which how calm you are and how much in control of your mind you are will matter probably the most. And that's irrespective of health. Anything.
Thank you, sir.
Next question from behind. We take it from the people from the remote locations. So, yes, your questions. Who wants to start? Please name please.
Hello sir, Abhi Gupta from Taiwan Public School, Konagar, and I want to say something, sir. I have heard a lot of speeches from a lot of dietitians and doctors, but something I found particularly interesting in your speech is that you're not saying no to anything. You're saying that you should eat out, you should eat sugar, but you should eat it in a balance.
Exactly.
So what I'm asking you is, how do we find this perfect balance? Because I think balance is something which is missing in a lot of our lives.
Right.
Balancing between work and rest. So how can we find that balance, sir?
Right. So, very correctly pointed out. You see, a lot of people come and tell me I am on a diabetic diet. There's nothing called a diabetic diet. A person with diabetes can have rasgulla, he can have sweets, he can have everything in life. So it's about balancing things out. And this balance, I was trying to give you an idea of what is the average calorie intake, right? For every individual. So you ensure that you remain within that kind of a range in whatever you're eating. So for example, somebody comes and tells me, I want to have a rasgulla or a sandesh today. So I tell the patient with diabetes, don't take it in isolation, because if you take a sweet in isolation, the glucose will shoot up and then come down. So take it as part of a mixed meal, so that once you take it, it goes into your stomach, becomes a big mixture or a khichdi, and gradually that glucose is absorbed. So if you're taking that, ensure that something else is coming out of your quota for the day. So reduce the amount of carbs that you're taking that day. or reduce the amount of protein that you're taking that day. So similarly, what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm not asking you to stop to going to restaurants with your friends. I'm not asking you to stop to going out with your parents to eat. But all that I'm trying to tell you is what Khana said. Moderation. Moderation is the key to life. Whether you're talking about exercise, because you've seen so many celebrities dying trying to over-exercise. Nothing over is good. Try and make it a habit. I was trying to harp on that word habit. That you stick to in a discipline in terms of your lifestyle. Whether it's your diet, whether it's your exercise pattern. The other thing that I didn't talk about, which is rubbish in your generation, that is sleep. I see my daughter awake at 1:30 a.m. on WhatsApp. What's going on? We need to have good sleep because you're disrupting your biorhythm. So make sure you lead a disciplined life irrespective of whether your parents tell you. Onekai bolbe, my parents are liberal. They don't tell me anything even if I order on Zomato 10 times a week. It's after all your life. You have to learn to cut down on things and say, okay, I want a long, healthy life. To do that, either I can get all the fun in 5 years of life and then spend the rest of my life leading a miserable life, or I can spend a life of moderation, healthily, for the rest of my life. So it will depend on you. Because, it's like a policeman. I can tell you what is to be done, but I can't be a policeman at you and say, eat this, don't eat that, take this, don't do that. It's up to you. It's self-discipline, which ultimately matters in everything in life.
Next question.
Good morning, sir. I am Shumanti Viswas from Endocrinology. My question is that as we are reading in class 12 now, so we have too many tuitions, so we do not have any particular time or routine between the food consumption schedule. Also, we have to study late night, so it is not possible for us to maintain the proper food health. So how should we manage time as we are always engaged in some or other study works? So what are the food and the routine that we should follow during this crucial year of class 12?
Right. I do agree class 2 is a very, very difficult time of life. And I was trying to tell you that you would have noticed that most of you and your friends would have put on weight since class 9 to class 12. It's something that I see inevitably in particularly the girls' school. It's inevitable. Now, here comes the question. You might not have enough time to exercise. I agree and I accept it completely. But when you talk about you're doing, discipline your diet. I know you cannot increase your exercise. You don't have time for it.
Okay, only one question now.
Ma'am, please, can I?
Due to constraint of time, one.
Which school hasn't had a chance? I think this
I
one.
think those school who have.
Yes.
Yeah, so nowadays in our generation, which is Gen Z, we see a lot of people who are depressed. And now depression is not a mental disease anymore, it is more of a trend. So how can we change this mindset? And also along with that, I would like to ask another question. What's the difference between simple sadness and depression? Like, how to identify it? Do I have sadness or am I suffering from depression? Which school you are and what is your name? I am Kajuri Kanji from Vidya Bharati Girls High School.
Right. So I think one of the major challenges and the problems is we don't have true friends. You have an Instagram account, you have a WhatsApp account, you have a Facebook account, and you have 1200 followers. How many people amongst them can you actually call them true friends? I'm not really sure. You know, at least during our school days, we didn't have any of this. And at least some of us were fortunate to have school friends. I still have at least 10 friends from various aspects of life, school, college, and things like that. People who I can call up any time of the day. Pick up a phone or can tell him, "Chol, aajke boshe kotha boli, golpo kori." Now the major challenge most of you face is because you don't have someone in whom you can actually confide in, talk to with. কারণ যে বন্ধুটাকে বললে সে গিয়ে না আবার বলে দিল ও জানিস তো ডিপ্রেস, তাতে ব্যাপারটা আরো ঘটে গেল। তো we all need one or two people in life that you can trust and who you can actually truly call a friend, in whom you will not be scared to tell him, you know, that I am rubbish in mathematics, you know, my such and such, either one of the parents has actually been very bad to me today, without actually being nasty about it. You are trying to express yourself honestly about the problems that you have. আর একটা যেটা প্রবলেম বললাম, আমাদের জেনারেশনের সময় অন্যরকম একটা প্রবলেম ছিল। দাদুদের সঙ্গে বা বাবাদের সাথে কথা বলতে গেলে না হেভি ভয় করত। হ্যাঁ, সেই জায়গায় হয়তো মাকে বলা যেত। So amongst your family itself also, you've got to find out an ally who will have time to talk to you without being judgmental, who will actually listen to your problems. আর যেটা হয়ে গেছে সেটা কি বলতো, everybody has huge expectations. In the sense, your parents have unrealistic expectations of you. You have unrealistic expectations of your parents. আমাকে ম্যাকবুকটা কিনে দিল না কেন? মানে সেই ব্যাপারটা তো হয়েছে। সাধ আর সাধ্যের মধ্যে ডিসপ্যারিটি হলে ডিপ্রেশন হবে। So whenever you have a wish and a capability, whenever you have a disparity between the two, you will have a conflict in the mind. Now that gets vitiated with a lot of other features in life. Along with that, depression is of two types. You were talking about sadness. One is called endogenous depression and the other is called exogenous depression. আমি যখন ডাক্তারি পড়তে ঢুকেছি ফার্স্ট ইয়ারে আমার বাবা মারা যায়। সো সেই সময় আমার একটা এক্সোজেনাস একটা ফ্যাক্টর কাজ করেছে। I had to look after my grandparents. বিষয়ের বিষ, ভাড়াটে, মামলা. So I was unhappy, I was sad, but that was exogenous. Whereas আমাদের মধ্যে অনেকেরই পার্সোনালিটি এমন আছে যে সবসময় গোমরাতে নিয়ে বসে থাকে। That has a genetic background as well. Now if such an individual has another insult from outside, things get triggered. Sadness is very, very normal. We are all sad. মন বাগান হেরে গেলে আজও আমার দুঃখ হয়। That's normal, right? But when that starts interfering with my daily activities, you know there's something wrong. আর যেটা আমি বলার চেষ্টা করলাম, it is always better to seek help without being ashamed. যে জানিস তো ও না কালকে গেছিল, ডাক্তারের কাছে গেছিল, সাইকিয়াট্রিস্টের কাছে গেছিল। এই যে আমাদের মধ্যে ঢুকিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে না, this discrimination and the taboo of mental health. That's why I like that question, all that, মানে এত ভালো লেগেছে, because mental health issues is something that people don't talk about. এবং এটা আগের জেনারেশনও, আমি যেমন আমার বউ যেমন আমার মেয়েকে মাঝে মাঝে বকে দিয়ে বলে বড় আমার এত কিসের মন খারাপের কারণ আছে। So she might be having something going on in her life. আমাদের তো এত অ্যাডজাস্ট করার ক্ষমতা ছিল, এই জিনিসগুলো বলা হয় তো বাচ্চাগুলোকে, but that's not true. To her that's the world. I don't have time, she doesn't have time to talk to her and bring it out of what's actually happening and helping her cope. আর বাইরে থেকে না এই বিশেষ করে সোশ্যাল মিডিয়ার পর লোকজনের এক্সপেকটেশন অফ লাইফ ভয়ঙ্কর রকম পাল্টে গেছে। As a researcher, I look at 5% success as huge success. I look at 5% success as a huge success. But people only talk about success stories. Nobody talks about your failures. So you start thinking and believing that, you know, ওই লোকটা এটা ভালো করেছে, সেই লোকটা এটা ভালো করেছে. And you know, there's an African proverb which says, that the lion is never glorified. The warrior is, because the lion does not learn how to write stories. People who are failures, they don't get to write the stories. People who are successful, they only get to write their stories. And therefore all of you start thinking that success is natural. Success should come to everybody. It won't. You will see tennis players. One of the tennis players who's been very successful, who I strongly dislike, is Roger Federer. Because he starts crying on the court once he loses. A true leader and a true champion remains calm even when he loses. Look at Dhoni. He's unperturbed even when he's lost. Be like him. Accept that if you are 5% successful in life, you would have done extremely well in life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we invite please. Mental health. Second one. Piyu Pohilan. Please come. Piyu, please come. Piyu Pohilan, Birla Girls High School, has been awarded for the best student. Now I am inviting Dr. Shumantru Das to felicitate our invited speaker, Prof. Dr. Sujoy Ghosh. Thank you, sir. Now, we have come to the end of the first session, and I'm giving the vote of thanks on behalf of the Dept Foundation. We express our gratitude to our invited speaker, Prof. Dr. Sujoy Ghosh, for accepting our invitation and delivering such a beautiful lecture before the audience. We also express our heartfelt thanks to the director, Birla Industrial and Technological Museum, to arrange this program for the school students of the occasion of the celebration of the World Health Day 2024. Our thanks to all the participants and school teachers and guardians, if any, who have attended this program. I want to just thanks by taking the names of the schools. Nobuchato Vidya Bhavan for girls, Beltala Girls High School, Birla High School, Mukundapur, Children's Welfare Association High School for girls, Vidya Bharati Girls High School, Modernland Girls High School, Beltala Girls High School, Agrashun Balika Vidyalaya, PM Street EV Baliganj, Techno India Group Academia, South Kolkata, Techno India Group Public School, Gurnagor, Khalsa Model Senior Section Secondary School, and Delhi Public School, Ruby Park. I thank all of you, all the students and faculty members who have attended this project. Now, we also give sincere thanks to all the technicians and staff of Birla Industrial Technological Museum for making this program successful. A special thanks to Ms. Aditi Ghosh of their team, who keenly have today the special thing that is awaiting for you, the quiz contest. She will be conducting the quiz contest, and I want to say that with her intervention, our Prof. Dept Foundation have established a tie with the team. Thank you. Thank you all. Over to